Larry Goldberg, it turns out that we have got another good day.
Which sets us up for another bad day.
Or maybe we'll have two in a row and then two bad. I don't.
And then two
bad one that erases everything. So we did have a $5.54 increase today. Nothing like our fun on Wednesday and Thursday of last week, but nothing like the fun that we had on Friday either. I was interesting. I mentioned this morning. Well,
I just wanted to say that the indecision around the pricing of Tesla is really not reflective of the situation in Tesla. It's reflective of the macro situation. And the macro situation is really, on a knife edge. The market can't decide whether this Fed is going to go ahead and reduce 1/4 point or 1/2 point. And if it reduces 1/2 point, whether the 1/2 point is going to be followed by another 1/2 point or 1/4 point in a month or two's time. This is indicative of just how bad the economy is and how we have an Afrikaans word. In South Africa, we had an Afrikaans word called skitterig. It means unsure.
Yeah.
Nervous.
Yeah.
Nervous, unsure.
Skittish.
Skittish, skitterig.
Yeah.
And it means more scared than skittish.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
We're skitterig.
Yeah.
And that's what the market situation is. So it's not Tesla. It's not you, it's me. It's not Tesla, it's the market,
Right.
So I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think the macro has been in charge the last few days. Because it really there's only been good Tesla news for a week. There's hardly been anything negative coming out of Tesla. Right. So, and we've got all this to look forward to in just a month. So it's very hard to imagine anything but some kind of FOMO moving us upward in the next few weeks.
Yeah, but what that means in terms of valuation is very hard to determine. Right. And so probably that plays into the uncertainty of that plays into the market just moving backwards and forwards. So that's just how I see it.
Yeah. All right. So in the news today, Sawyer Merritt says that American consumers planning to buy a new car are 14% less likely to purchase an electric vehicle than they were last year, citing expensive battery replacement costs and access to public chargers as their top concerns, according to EY Mobility Consumer Index. The survey of roughly 1,500 Americans found 34% of respondents planning on purchasing a new vehicle in the next 2 years. They intended to buy an EV, but that was 48% last year. So I think what they're saying is out of all those, not that 34% are going to buy a car within the next 2 years, but out of everybody that's planning to buy a car in the next 2 years, 34% are still planning to buy an EV. I think that's still a good number. But what do you think about this report? Do you have any other thoughts on it?
There is a lot of confusion in the public's mind as to what an EV means. And it's because of the rise of the hybrid. And the hybrid was very popular for a while. Its popularity declined. And the auto industry has become very creative about their hybrids. There are now four types of hybrids. Anyway, I don't want to go into the whole thing because I am in the process of investigating this. But the rise of the hybrid is really causing a lot of decline in the EV space. So that's one issue. The other issue, without doubt, is this, fear, uncertainty, doubt about EVs. I mean, this study cites stuff that we know just doesn't exist. I mean, and that indicates to me that they have no real clue as to why decisions are being made or not being made. So yes, EVs in relation to their recent years of growth have declined in growth. Yes, hybrids have replaced some of that growth, and then some, by the way. There aren't one type of hybrid, there are many types of hybrid, like 4 categories of hybrid. So we don't really know what they mean by hybrid. And really, hybrid simply means the dealer is able to sell the car, as opposed to an electric vehicle where the dealer is unable to sell the car because there's no after-sale service to come with the car. So all of that's playing out at the moment. I think it'll pass, you know, just like these waves of doubt have passed in previous years. This is going to pass as well.
Yeah, I blame it a little bit. Well, I blame it a lot on the major auto dealers, the relics.
That is a correct statement. Yeah, because and that's how hybrids play into it. You see, hybrids can be serviced by auto dealers. EVs really cannot be successfully. There's no service to be done on them. There's no value add. So this is the, you know, this is the revenge of the auto dealers, if you wish. That's how we'll title this particular movie.
Right. Exactly. So the consumer who is paying any attention at all to their traditional methods of purchasing, to the dealer, to the salesman, etc., is hearing, oh no, you don't want to get a full BEV. It's much better right now to stick with a hybrid. So we also have NHTSA, and everybody pronounces it differently. We have the National Highway Transportation Safety group here wanting new safety rules with regard to the hoods of trucks. They are concerned that some pedestrians have been hit by the trucks and then hit their head on the truck hood, and they've expired. And my understanding is that this, they're getting all up and excited about this. And I know every death is important, but we're talking about 67 deaths. Larry, is this overregulation, or am I getting too concerned about overregulation?
I don't know. I mean, I will tell you that I have been shocked by and we're talking about light trucks, are we, or are we talking about heavy trucks?
I think this would be consumer type trucks.
Light trucks is what we call them. Yeah. So I've been concerned about the the height of these trucks, the height of the radiator or the front grille of these trucks. It is clear to me that there is a lack of visibility in front of these trucks. By the way, it's not true in the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck is completely the opposite. It has incredible visibility in the front, not great visibility on the side because of those posts. Very large, what are they called? The things that hold the roof up. But the
A-pillar,
pillars, the B pillar, yeah. Those pillars, A pillar, yeah. The pillar, is very thick, and it really does affect your vision on the side. That's what I found. But as far as the vision forward is concerned, it's fantastic. Now, I haven't sat in the driver's seat of a truck with these gigantic radiators and whatever they put in the front there. To me, it's blatantly unnecessary, but I could be wrong. But I consider them dangerous. That's my personal view.
Yeah, so the question is, though, whether or not you spend jillions of federal dollars to investigate, and I mean, maybe it's a simple solution, but it just seems like, I mean, and again, 67 deaths, if you can prevent it, great. But somebody compared it, I forget what it was, they compared it to bee sting deaths or something, and it was like less than the number of people that are dying from bee sting.
I will tell you how many wasp stings kill people, because my son-in-law died of a wasp
oh my goodness
sting 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago?
Yeah, it was a terrible, terrible situation we had in our family. He took a wasp sting and died within the hour. And there are only 50 people a year.
50 a year?
Die of wasp stings, yeah. Wow. But so, yeah, the real issue is not so much those deaths that die, people not seeing there. but it is the ability of a truck driver to drive safely on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know how limiting it is. It just seemed to me to be incredibly limiting.
Okay, all right. Well, what we're going to do next is we're going to share the screen. So I'm going to take a quick pause. So AJ, doing one of his really, really good jobs, has put together a set of slides having to do with the China market. And of course, the China market, is the largest auto market in the world. And I think it's also the largest luxury market in the world, isn't it? I think it's
The largest everything in the world.
Largest everything in the world. So anyway, he wanted to kind of point out where Tesla's fitting into all this, where BEVs are fitting into the story. And so he did a series of slides. Let's just take a look here. So number one, China vehicle sales declined. Overall vehicle sales declined for the 5th consecutive month on a year-over-year basis. You can see it going slightly up during the course of the year, but on a year-over-year basis, a pretty significant decline. So we've got China, which is having some, I guess, economic issues. They are seeing a decline in pricing. In other words, their consumer price index is actually much less increasing at a very slow rate. I think 0.6 for the year. I think that's right. 0.6
Right.
For the year. So they are either in recession or nearly recession. And for them, that's huge because they were doing,
China's been in a continuous recession ever since COVID.
Yeah. So this is impacting their car sales. And so this is one of the things that AJ wanted to point out.
Yeah, a lot of people would actually contest my statement, but I'm pretty sure of it.
Okay. Well, we know that they've been declining. If they have not been in recession, certainly the rapid growth that they've been experiencing over many, many years had slowed down to a very small amount, even if it's not 100% in recession. All right. So then he says, okay, I think that was, I jumped too far here, back there. So despite the overall weakening vehicle sales, BEV sales in China increased 19% year over year. So China, of course, is pushing the BEV sale. I guess they're pushing BEVs. I guess they must also be okay with hybrids because their hybrid business is also doing pretty well.
I'm a little concerned about whether this graph is not clear as to whether battery hybrids with batteries in them are included in these numbers or not.
It does say BEV right here.
Well, that's the problem that I'm having, is that as I dig deeper into this subject, the more I discover that people are mixing up BEVs and hybrids that have large batteries in them and assuming that they're the same thing.
Yeah, I was working on that kind of stuff about a year ago, and especially when you go into the individual companies, trying to find anything on their website that would allow you to determine whether they're EVs or new electric vehicles, the new the NEVs they call them, or whether they're actually full on BEVs.
Yeah, there are really 4 categories of hybrid. There's everything from the so-called light hybrid to the light EV, the EV with a gas generator in it.
Right.
So, and then you've got the 2 intermediate steps. So the question is this true just battery EVs, not including any hybrid or gasoline augmentation?
Well, we'll have to shoot out a note to AJ.
I'll ask AJ. Yeah, I'll ask him.
All right. So then he says that China BEV sales exceed for the first time 30% of total vehicle sales in August. I don't remember whether the next slide is showing that total new electric vehicle sales there are now slightly over 50%. So again, not knowing exactly how these are classified, somewhere between 30 and 50% are these. In this case, 28.8% would be maybe 100% BEV.
Yeah, this may be true battery EVs because I think the NEVs account for over 50% now.
Right, right.
So I think he's right. I think this is battery EVs. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then, did I go to V yet? I can't seem to do this one at a time, Larry. The BEV market share, oh, that's what we just did. I am so sorry. There we go, 2C. BEV market share gains have been re-accelerating since March of 2024. So that's interesting. So,
yeah, and actually that increase is actually relatively modest compared to the total increase. So I think we need to, I get, this is a good picture.
okay, all right. And this is a trailing 3-month market share.
Yeah.
This is market share, not units, market share. Now that makes more sense to me. We're only talking about, small changes here from the change in market share. So small changes. Okay. Then we go from that to Tesla. So Tesla specific. Tesla's China BEV market share. Now, this is not the total market share, but just their market share of their market percentage of the BEV market was 10.9% in August.
Which is relatively consistent. I mean, they've been as high as 14%.
Right.
Actually, they've been as high as 20%, but those were the early years before the rest of China caught up.
Right. In particular, BYD. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So right now, 10.9 is a pretty good number. And then Tesla's China BEV market share decreased slightly to 10.9. And this is a trailing 3-month basis, not the actual unit sales in the month. So showing a trailing 3-month basis, definitely market share wise against BEVs, it's declining.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is pretty understandable given the number of BEV manufacturers that are operational in China today.
Right. So then it says Chinese consumers prefer BEVs over hybrids, and that gap is widening. Now there's a good number.
I'm having a hard time with that statement. The numbers I'm looking at looks like the other way around. I mean, hybrids are gaining ground on BEVs globally. They're gaining ground in the US, definitely gaining ground in Europe. And my last look at China was that they were gaining ground in China. So, so I'm a little suspicious.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then we go on to the next one. If I could find my thing. Whoops. 5, 6. For each hybrid sale, there was 1.31 BEV sales. That would just be a different way of looking at the same number that we just looked at. And then China's ICE vehicle market halved in 5 years. So this is what's just crushing Mercedes, Volkswagen, BMW, Ford.
I was going to make the point that they may be crushing ICE vehicle sales, but they are completely destroying to zero actual imported brand ICE vehicles in China. They're disappearing. They're evaporating.
Yeah, and I saw that AJ also did a report on SAIC the other day. Nobody had even heard of SAIC until about a year ago. I was probably one of the first ones to talk about them. They were they're still a huge maker of OEM cars with other people's brand plates on them. Their sales are just way off.
I'm surprised you're saying that because I've been following SAIC for years. They were a partner of GM. They were GM's elected partner, and they're the ones that paid GM about a $2 billion. Well, they and another, they were one of the two, but they were the senior partner in that. In terms of how much they paid GM every year in dividends, all of that's evaporated.
Right.
General Motors, Volkswagen, and Ford and it's coming to Mercedes and it's coming to BMW. Their business in China is evaporating.
Right. Right. Has been. Yeah. And then we have the ICE vehicle market share dropping to 46%. That's what we were talking about a minute ago. So the combination of all new electric vehicles is now apparently 54% in China. So that's good news for China. And it's another one of those things, Larry, where strategically it's worrisome more to me than as a capitalist thinking about market shares and market.
It's a nuclear bomb.
Right.
Exploding in the face of OEMs, of traditional OEMs globally.
And
so whether they're a European manufacturer or they're a US manufacturer, this is the worst or Japanese manufacturer.
Right.
This is the worst possible news, because when China runs out of market in China, where are they going to go?
Right.
So this is like Volkswagen are going to have to, they're going to have to halve the size of the company, and that's going to be a political bomb, equivalent to, a wartime event, because Germany's going to have to reinvent itself. It's reinvented itself several times since the war. It's going to have to reinvent itself, and it's unclear how it goes about doing that. Maybe they'll find a way. The Germans are, they're extraordinary people, but they're going to have to dig deep for this. The American auto companies, including those that are Japanese and those that are German in US, are going to have to dig very deep. It's not clear to me how they manage. And certainly GM and Ford, they have their truck business, and that truck business is, it's going to be under siege. Their car business is going to evaporate.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the Japanese are concerned, I know Toyota is an extraordinary company, but I don't know how they survive this.
Yeah. Yeah. And my thought was even more on the strategic side. So the United States has amazing resources, especially oil, natural gas, et cetera, in the energy sector. And China is at a great disadvantage in that regard because they don't have oil and natural gas. So whether they were just clever and thinking ahead in terms of what would be possible, whether they got lucky, but the reality is that they're moving way faster on this energy renewal source.
They did not get lucky.
Okay.
You should listen to Tim Cook expounding on the qualities of Chinese manufacturing. They're extraordinary manufacturers, and it's got nothing at all to do with cheap labor. There's no cheap labor in China anymore. They're engineers, and they are resourceful, and they are they're outstanding at manufacturing. They are the best manufacturing country in the world, exceeding the skills of the United States, Germany, and Japan.
Yeah, I was thinking, Larry, more along the lines of getting lucky, meaning because they didn't have oil or natural gas, it made it so much more realistic for them to look at solar, to look at the potential for batteries early than it did a rich country like the United States. I mean, rich in the sense of those natural resources. Cheap gasoline, cheap oil causes somebody who's thinking strategically for years in advance to be saying, why do we need to change? It's not that expensive. Whereas
I'm not sure that it's determinative. I mean, look at Norway. Norway is cheap oil. Norway, is the fount of oil for Europe, but Norway is extremely lucky in a sense. They have a huge amount of hydropower, but they haven't they have been extremely cautious about deploying, taking that taking the revenue from their oil and putting it aside for the future, but focusing on, what they do well. And so I think China, I think we don't really give China the credit that's due to them. I mean, they have been incredibly productive. They have been incredibly resourceful. Yeah, people will say they cheat, they steal secrets, they copy, blah, blah, blah. And that may be true. It probably is true. But nonetheless, they have outstanding academic institutions. They have outstanding engineering institutions, and they are incredibly resourceful. And they've built a manufacturing behemoth. And it's going to take a lot to compete with them.
Yeah. And so my encouragement to other countries in Europe and to countries around the world, plus our own United States, is that whether or not we have a crisis with regard to CO2, we could end up having a crisis with regard to our comparative wealth if we don't get busy, even busier than we already are, with this transition into less expensive renewables. I'm not even talking about in terms of CO2 or anything else, just the fact that it's less
exactly
expensive.
Right. You're right on target. And there's another thing that you're not looking at and that we tend to ignore in this country. And that is even more important. It is skills at manufacturing. We were the leading company in the world in terms of being able to, remember what we did in the Second World War. We took all those auto companies and we turned them into aircraft manufacturing companies in a matter of a year. We have to learn to manufacture again. And what General Motors are doing and what Ford are doing is not what I'm talking about. It's what Tesla is doing is what I'm talking about. We have to learn again what is necessary to become a leading manufacturing power. And I don't want to knock unions. I think unions have a place, a role to play, but not the unions that we have today with, this incredibly corrupt leadership and this focus on, work rules and this focus on earnings. We need to become, all of us need to become participants in the organization, whether it's, whether we used to call them in South Africa, appies, on the floor, or whether we're the CEO. We have to actually change how we do things. And Elon's given us, the way forward at SpaceX, at Tesla, at Neuralink. These are manufacturing companies par excellence.
Right.
And that's what we have to become.
Yeah, yeah. Well, switching gears, Apple had their big event today, and most of what I'm seeing on X is yawning.
I had a very busy day. And so in the midst of trying to fashion this post, I gave up. But I was going to track all the incredible products this company has released since Steve's passing.
Yes.
They made a watch.
Yeah.
They made a pair of earphones or something.
And the ear deals are really, really good.
Meh. It didn't change the world. And they made a pair of goggles that don't work. Yeah. In 15 years, they spent, they put 800 people, then 1,000 people, then 1,200 people onto their car. Nothing happened. Come on, guys. And they're on how many issues of the iPhone now?
16. This will be
16.
Yeah.
And they're going to reinvent AI. They've invented AI. I mean, what an incredible thing they're inventing. The world needs AI. They've invented AI. Thank you, Apple. I
Yeah.
mean, come on. I mean, this is a miserable company in my judgment. Miserable.
Yeah. So I guess you're agreeing with the yawn over today's show. Some of
I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail from this.
some of the kinder people on CNBC were saying, well, they'll be releasing iterations of this AI over the next months, kind of like Tesla. They made the comparison to Tesla. They said, well, like Tesla does those over-the-air updates, Apple will be adding these amazing over-the-air updates as the AI thing becomes better and better and better. But what happened to the personal assistant in your pocket? I was waiting for that.
I mean, they've had Siri for how many years?
Yeah.
Seriously, Siri could have been like the Pathfinder.
No kidding.
You know, I don't want to look. People love Apple. I'm going to get a huge amount of hate mail, and I'm going to be told about this little thing and that little. I mean, I get it. People love it, but I don't. And so you want to unfollow me, you want to hate me, that's your, that's fine. Let's go ahead and get into that. But I don't know. I think this is a Warren Buffett company deluxe.
Yeah,
It's like his carpet company.
Yeah. Well, okay, on the economic side, in July, consumer credit increased at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 6%. Revolving credit was at 9.4% and non-revolving at 4.8%. This is the most since late 2022. And so the credit cards now are the solution, as consumers no longer can afford the basics without tapping into their credit cards. Spending in July was up, but you and I covered this, Larry, last month. We saw that incomes were up 4%, but spending was up 6%. Well, if that happens, you have to find it somewhere, and it's going to be in the credit cards if the savings are all gone. And you say?
Well, we've spoken about this at length. I mean, the economy has turned down. I mean, there's no doubt we are in that recessionary state. I mean, 2-year Treasury yields and Fed funds is negative 1.68 points, a 50-year low. A 50-year low.
Right.
And every time there's been a 1-point gap, it's always been a recession, always. And often it requires some sort of catalyst, a war or a financial market volatility, some sort of catalyst. That's coming.
There'll always be
So this Fed is going to have to drop 50 points. It won't. I don't think it will. But it's going to have to drop 50 points to avoid catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to have to follow with another 50 points within a month or two. And I don't think it will. So, ask my opinion. We talked, some weeks ago about we're already in a recession. Mm-hmm. Kathy Wood calls it a rolling recession. I think we're already in recession. Mm-hmm. And I think we really risk a serious problem if we don't react quickly. And the fact that we're in the midst of this very, very strange election cycle is not going to help anybody. So we'll see what happens, in the debate. But look, I don't put a lot of confidence in Kamala Harris' ability to see this election cycle through. She's got enormous amount of support. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I'm not a great supporter of Trump. I have these, this very negative view of, but, I just don't understand how the Democrats can put up this vacuous person and put all this hope and put all this, assign all these values to her, because there's no there. Anyway,
Yeah.
get off the politics.
Well,
We're in
that's good.
serious.
That's
These
okay.
are serious times.
It is serious times. So 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐲, one of my favorite, one of my other favorites at pulling in the data. Don't always agree with his assessments, but the data, he says the Bloomberg U.S. labor market surprise index, the surprise index dropped to negative 0.7 point, its lowest in 13 years. This gauge measures reported job market data compared to consensus estimates. Over the last few months, the index has seen one of the sharpest drops in 18 years.
Yeah.
And it sits at its second lowest since the 2008 financial crisis. This means most of the labor market data has surprised downward by a wide margin. We've been reporting on that. And he says recent misses include non-farm payroll numbers, job opening numbers, ADP employment, and ISM services employment. Misses on all of those just in the last 2 weeks.
You know, if this Fed doesn't give us 50 basis points, I think the market's going to drop, I don't know, 10%, 20%, in that range.
So now, Larry, we get into a like some confusion in that. So number one, commonly the market will drop after the interest rate cut anyway, just because it's dropping on the news. Then we got this other issue is if they do 50 basis point cut, psychologically, it may sound like they're panicking. So what do you think about all that?
Well, there's a very high expectation now of 50 basis points, right? And I, based upon his track record, think that this chairman may actually go 25 points. Well, this Fed may go actually 25 basis points, which would be far worse than if it went 50 points. So the panic factor will, I think, be not as great as the real panic if he only goes 25 points.
And this, of course, the credit number today didn't impact the market at all. The market didn't move at all on that. In fact, it went up after this credit news came out. Well, speaking of the market, the Dow was up 484, NASDAQ was up 193, S&P was up 62, Tesla up, as mentioned earlier, 554. The Magnificent Seven, except for Google, all up nicely. NVIDIA up 364, so good day for them. Apple even broke even today with their kind of meh show today. Google was down, don't know why, 239, and the Cathie Woods were basically all up as well. Market moved all around, went up and down, but for the day ended up still in good shape when all was said and done. Any other thoughts about today's market action, Larry?
I was so busy today that I didn't actually look at the market. I think I had a pretty good day in the market. I think interest rates declined a little, long-term rates declined a little, right? Because some of my bonds looked good.
Yeah, they were down and up also. They were actually up in the early going, then they came back down, and now they're a tad up in the pre-market. So the 10-year is up 0.5 of a basis point at 3.704, with the 2-year similarly up.
Did they close up or down?
I think they closed down, but
I thought they closed.
I think they closed down, yes. But we're right about 3.7 at this point is where we are.
Yeah.
The 2-year is at 3.671. So there's your 3 basis point difference in terms of in the right, so-called right direction with regard to those two. And of course, the 2-month and 3-month are still, off doing their own thing. And someday somebody will tell me what was going on with that. I think it has to do with the Treasury and decisions that they're making about the kind and size of bonds that they're putting out. But
you've been saying that for about 2 months.
With that, I'm going to look into it. I have looked into it. Nobody has any explanations. Oil, call it unchanged right now in the pre-market, 68.79 for Texas Intermediate and Brent at 71.84. lots and lots of conversations today from people saying that they do expect oil to go down even more.
Yeah, they were talking about going down to $60. I don't think so.
Yeah.
We should have Nick Colas on because he's absolutely, he is the polar opposite of where we are. But anyway.
Is he really? That'd be interesting. You should invite him. Invite him on.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Natural gas all over the place in the last, well, I've been shocked. Again, I mentioned this morning on my show, Larry, I've never cared about natural gas until like a year ago, but watching it the last 3 months, it's just been so volatile.
Yeah, but natural gas has got such a unique market structure because it is so local to its market, and it is not easy. It's not easy to actually establish a market value for it because it's so confined to the pipelines and the storage available for it. It doesn't have the depth and the breadth of the petroleum market. So that's why it's so strange and difficult to predict or track. And that's why the macro tends to have less, and it's very weather dependent. So it's got all these variables that don't apply as much to other commodities.
And it's sitting at $2.14 in the pre-market. Gold, kind of hanging out right there, 25.35. It was a little lower. Now it's kind of back, but not a lot of movement right now in gold. Same with silver, up a little bit in the pre-market, 28.70, but that's kind of where it's been. And copper is down a tad, but again, 413, 414, that's down a bit from the, I think, 421 that it was earlier today. Dollar up against both the yen and the euro in the pre-market, but not by much, pretty small percentages. Now, the Bitcoin finally found its legs. So for those who you go by Randy's rule that, by the way, I found out that I wasn't the first one to say this, Larry, back at the, in 1929, some famous guy said something about what goes up must come down. And he got rich. He got really, really rich. I forget his name now. I've heard about this before, but he was like, this is impossible. Absolutely impossible. It's way too high. And he sold short like crazy. And he made bloody lots and lots of fortunes out of that. Bitcoin up 2,749. And that puts it back in the 57 range. It's still not even got back to 60, but that is pretty interesting. So the equities, not a lot of motion here. Dow up 15 or 0.04, S&P up 8 or 0.15, and 0.15 also for the NASDAQ future. That's 27.5 points up. So all three up as we go into the close of into the end of our business, at the end of our business together today.
Well, sorry I was so aggressive tonight.
Oh yes, well, Larry, you've been busy working on that big project of yours all day, so you're probably pumped.
Very busy day. Very busy day. A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
All right, Larry, thank you so much as always for coming on and unwinding all this craziness in this world that we're in. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. I'll be very interested to talk to you later in the week, Larry, after the debates.
What's going to happen to the debate? Have you predicted that?
Have I predicted it? So you and I mentioned, I think last week, I think Trump has only lost one debate ever. He's kind of maybe broken even one other time.
He didn't do well against Hillary.
He didn't do well, but he won, I think. I don't think he lost any debates against Hillary, right? He lost.
I don't know. I didn't watch those debates.
But he beat like all the Republican challengers both times and 3 times. He's
all I know is that I didn't like Trump and I didn't like Hillary. I'm kind of almost in the same boat. Trump so impressed me during the assassination attempt and the aftermath.
Right.
And then he went back to his old ways again, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. So for me, it all really comes down to, and every day his team is coming up with actually sophisticated ideas about what to do about the economy, not just the same, oh, we're going to, throw more money at it, and et cetera, but actually, good ideas like
Well,
bringing.
I'll say one more time, he had some really, really, really good policies during his presidency, despite all the noise.
Mhm.
And the question is, can he do it again? Will he do better about who he hires and who he puts around himself? Will he behave? And I'm a little worried about his age. Not a
Oh.
little, I'm worried about his age. He's getting on.
Yeah, he's as old as you. I mean, that's really old, Larry.
I could not tackle a job like that. I wouldn't even think about tackling a job like that. And I think that I think I'm in a sharper state of mind than he is. Certainly he gets himself lost in some of his speeches. Anyway, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, well, somebody the other day, Larry, on one of the comments on my show said that they were worried that possibly my memory was going. And
Your memory or
my memory, yeah, my memory was going. And I told them that they just needed to talk to my mom, and she's still around, so you can talk to her, and she would tell you that at age 6, my memory started going. So
that's great. That's great.
All right, well, let's close it up. It's been great. Larry, thank you so much to all of you out there.
Sorry, I was so argumentative.
It's been great talking to you.